Should you try out the MineColonies tropical building style? Well, you've clicked onto the video, so I guess you wanna know. The answer is yes. Yes, you should. There, saved you some time. In this video, we'll go over my experiences playing with this style, the good times, the bad times, and the drowny times. And I'll give you my honest thoughts and opinions about this style, so you can make up your own mind whether or not you should try it out in your next playthrough. Just a few quick notes before we begin. At the time of recording this video, the tropical style is still only available for Patreons of MineColonies, but is planned for full release at a later point. I also played this style using the MineColonies Tropical Style mod pack. This pack includes several mods that affected some of my gameplay, but for this video, I'm mostly going to concentrate on just the MineColonies mod. Let's start off with a major positive for the style. It's gorgeous. By far one of the most beautiful and creative styles that I've ever played. The tropical theme is quite different to most of the other styles, which tend to be more medieval themed. Medieval and dull. Not all of them of course, but there's definitely a lot of grey in those builds, which is where the tropical style differs. The bright and colourful nature of it is very visually appealing, I must say, and the overall style of the builds, with the clean white concrete walls and yellow vivid roofs, definitely adds a sunnier vibe I feel, which was great for me because I spent a lot of time recording my tropical playthrough during our winter months, and it was nice to feel the illusion of warmth and sunshine from the style, whilst it was grey, dark and freezing in reality. The location of the colony adds a lot to the visuals of this style as well. It's meant to be placed over water. Well, partially over water, not fully thrown into the depths of the ocean like I did with my colony, Paradise. The blue shimmer from the water adds yet another colour palette to the style, and the varied aquatic life swimming about was a nice change from the rogue sheep that just wanders in. One regret that I do have with building Paradise was not having it constructed closer to a coral reef. It would have been nice to include all of the different colours from it to our builds as well. Due to the nature of building the colony on top of water, it was also quite refreshing not having to terraform any landscape, or cut massive square chunks out of mountainsides to fit buildings in. The water served as a flat template, allowing me to build pretty much where I wished. The style's foundations are basically long wooden stilts which dipped into the water. Depending on the depth of the water they were placed into, I rarely had to spend any time preparing the area for the build. A simple case of, once the stilts were in place, the rest of the build was good to go. Well, for most of the builds anyway. There are a few which I think are better suited closer to land, so that you don't need to mess about with terraforming. The uniqueness of this style certainly struck a creative chord with me. Normally when I play Minecraft, either vanilla or modded, I'm usually a bed out in the open, chests and furnaces around it type of guy. I rarely tend to make bases or homes, or if I do, they normally end up looking like giant snow globes for some reason. But this style made me want in on the action, made me want to build my own proper home for once. And yeah, I'll admit, I ripped off every creative idea I had from these builds, but why wouldn't I? They are deceptively simple looking builds that even a brain dead moron like myself could potentially recreate. I mean, I could have, but I didn't. I basically took schematics of a few different builds, tweaked them, then had our builders construct them for me over my house. And honestly, I think it turned out alright. Just don't pay any thoughts to the empty room here. There's nothing going on that you'll ever need to know about. I did gush over this a bit during my playthrough, and I make no apologies for it. The herder platform from this style is ingenious, a potential game changer in my opinion. I'm a huge fan of saving real estate in my colonies. Any builds that can integrate other builds within it are an absolute winner in my book. A common example of this are courier huts being installed within the warehouse, which the tropical style does as well, I'll add. The herder platform does this by allowing you to install 5 different animal huts within it. So you have the rabbit, sheep, chicken, cow and pig huts all contained in one giant area, with the centre of the platform acting as a free-range pen for the animals to roam about in. This is great. It saves me having to plan out 5 different builds with 5 different pens to contain the animals within. Then comes the major wrong with this platform design, upgrading the animal huts in it. All the animal huts had a different form of the platform saved within its own upgrade schematic. So basically, when you upgraded one of the huts, it affected the decoration of the entire platform. I unfortunately didn't find this out until very late into my playthrough, but the cowhand's hut in this instance was the build that decorated the platform's inner area. So if you upgraded the cowhand's hut, the builder would decorate the inner area with the schematics that the build came with. But if you upgraded any of the other 4 huts after the cowhand, because that inner decoration wasn't part of those upgrade schematics, the builder would remove the decoration. So there was this eternal tug of war of building and removing of decorations every time you upgraded one of the animal huts in the platform. Quite frustrating. I do think this was an oversight. Maybe when the style is fully released, that may be something that's been fixed, but it was definitely an issue I experienced with the Herder platform during my playthrough. To me, the ideal scenario for the platform would be you build the Herder platform by itself, either fully decorated or with a decoration controller, which would only upgrade the platform. The animal huts would still be part of the platform, but when it came to upgrading them, their upgrades would only change things around the huts themselves. No other parts of the platform would be affected. Seems a simple fix to me. But then again, I've never built anything, so I have no idea how any of this stuff works. I'll let cleverer people work this one out, I think. Just as a quick mention before we get into the bad times with this style, I'd like to talk about the main building materials required for this style. They are actually really quite basic for what you get, mainly made of jungle and acacia wood and a shed load of wheat, and white concrete as well as the main upgrade block from level 3 onwards. But compared to a lot of the other styles, the materials to make these builds were very easy to obtain, and of course botany pots really helped as well. Let's talk about the big elephant in the room then, shall we? Drowning. Yes, the major issue with this style is the endless drowning of its idiots. Now I know we're building over water, so maybe the occasional accidental drowning might happen, but honestly, these morons were like lemmings to the sea. They just couldn't help themselves, stuck in a trance. Must enter the water, must take huge gulp of air. Oh no. Building conduits helped to some degree, but man, those dummies sure were persistent. I do think Paradise's deaths are pretty much on par with Despair from our Jungle Horror series. Great series I'll add, by the way, you should definitely give it a watch if you haven't already. I'd even go as far as saying that the death toll reached almost hell levels. Yeah, my old colony based in the Nether, where there's actual danger everywhere. Not, let's just dip my toes into the ocean, then say f*** it and drown myself danger. I feel a migraine coming on, remembering the sheer number of them that drowned. And the ocean creepers. Ugh. If it wasn't the constant ritual of unsuccessful underwater breathing, then it was the consistent petting of ocean creepers that offed my colonists. These creepers, added with the creeper overhaul mod, potentially a nice addition to a playthrough, don't get me wrong, but ocean creepers with a water-based colony such as this? No. Those little motherfuckers can absolutely do one. Now let's talk about my new all-time favoritist thing ever, water sorting. Water sorting is a silly little phrase I made up to explain what the builders were doing at the end of a construction. Although the building they were working on looked complete and mere seconds away from flagging off as complete, you'd find the builder just standing around, doing nothing for ages. They were doing water sorting, fixing a water block under them. I don't know exactly what was being sorted with the block. Most of the time it looked like nothing. I could understand if it was a piece of kelp or similar that had to be removed from the water block, so they were attempting to remove that. But the vast majority of the time, it just looked like an empty water block that they were fixing. If I were to ponder a guess, I'd think they were maybe changing the block to be a full water source block. I really don't know. And I'd assume because it's a block in the ocean, it would be a full source block anyway. What I do know though, is that this process took so damn long. They could throw the entire building up within 30 minutes to an hour, say, and the resource scroll would say 99% done. Then they would proceed to spend literal hours water sorting before the build would actually flag off. Episode 3 of our tropical playthrough saw us constructing the warehouse for the colony. Just as an example of how bad the water sorting was in the early days of our playthrough, there's a scene around the 12-minute mark where we talk about how close the build is to being finished. The following scene, with the fireworks finally firing off, was recorded over 4 hours later. Yeah, I had enough time to go for lunch, walk the dogs, and edit some of that episode, all whilst having the game run in the background, with the builder just water sorting away. And that was one building, just one level 1 building. Try multiplying that out for every other build in the colony, as well as each upgrade for them. I feel like I've lost years of my life just waiting on bloody water sorting. Now admittedly, most of this water sorting nonsense may have been caused by me placing a colony too deep into the water. I had the foundations placed down so that there was only a 1 block gap between them and the water itself, and this certainly aggravated this water sorting. In my defence, I didn't know how close to the water the build should be. My guess had been based upon the image shown in the style's thumbnail. And as a second defence, I'm also an idiot. Later, however, much later into the playthrough, I decided to raise the colony up by 1 block away from the water to see if that would combat the water sorting. And it did, tremendously. It practically ended the water sorting, thankfully. Although there was still some cases of it, with some builds afterwards, looking mainly at the town hall for this. In the final episode of our tropical playthrough, there's a scene towards the end with me talking to the builder about water sorting, then quickly followed by the next scene, which views the town hall being completed. There was a 2.5 hour gap between both those scenes due to water sorting, which I dread to think how long that would be if it was still closer to the water. Don't say that I don't think about you a lot. I wouldn't want to watch 2 hours of that water sorting shite either. But yeah, raising the colony up did help tremendously with water sorting, but fortunately, because life would be way too easy otherwise, it then also introduced a whole new problem. My idiots would get stuck under the foundations. Normally, they'd get stuck under pathways which had a stair block facing downwards, and they'd just slowly bob up and down in the water, failing to just simply move around the down-facing block. So to remedy this, I was constantly removing and reinstalling blocks, or punching the idiots out of the way to get them unstuck, which was kinda cathartic, not gonna lie. I think if I had raised the colony up by 2 blocks rather than the 1, that would have helped their water traversal certainly. I mean, not entering the water at all would have helped their pathing, but we can't all make good decisions. But a 2 block gap maybe would have been enough to let them float in the water unobstructed. That being said, however, maybe 2 blocks from the water would have been enough of a distance to stop them from wanting to enter it in the first place, something I would maybe need to test. Then I've remembered that some builds, like the guard and courier boat builds, would have been quite low down in the water compared to the rest of the colony, which would have been fine, but not the most aesthetically pleasing. And having them at the same raised height, well, you can maybe see the issue with fluid blocks attached to them if that were the case, plus the fact they would clearly be floating as well. You know, if you do choose to play this style, just do yourself a huge favour. Place the foundations at least 2 blocks away from the water, maybe even 3, just to be safe. And I've ranted long enough. So, the too long, didn't watch all of that? This is an absolutely stunning style. I really do recommend you trying it out for yourself. Sure, there's a few pain in the arse details with it, but the sheer creativity and happiness this style brings definitely outweighs how I feel. What would I do different next time? I'd keep the colony closer to shore, so I could construct some of its more foundation heavy builds on land, and keep its stilty boys in the water. I'd have it raised up by at least 2 blocks away from the water to try persuade the idiot residents from entering it. I'd also not play with the creeper overhaul mod either, or if I did, find out a way to disable the damn ocean creepers. And that's been my take on the MineColonies tropical style. I hope my experiences with this style has been somewhat helpful, or at least has given you an insight with what to expect with it. Anyway, definitely give this style a go once it fully releases. Thanks for watching.